Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of People and Tech, the podcast. In today's episode, I am super honored to announce a departure from our normal format where Dave and I would be talking about these things. This time we have a guest, and it's an exciting guest. It's someone who I have hoped to expose the mind of for a while to the universe. Someone who I hope you guys will find as endearing and fascinating as we have, and that is Aaron Phethean. Aaron has been my boss, he has been my colleague, he has been someone whom I've built technology with, and someone who you should hear from because he is now building the new world of data after having been both an entrepreneur and now the CEO of a technology company. So, without further ado, we're going to jump straight into a question we've asked him as he came on, and we hit record because we didn't want to miss on a good story he had. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and next week you're going to hear us chatting on our own, but the week after there's a very exciting guest coming on again. So don't forget to tune in, subscribe, and also find us on all our Work TV other channels.
Yeah. So I was going to call the prospect liability, and they had been one of my previous clients where we are working through their data debt, and he was the guy who implemented the original system that we're now going to replace. It was hilarious. And you get the whole backdrop of why it was at the time, and you're like, oh, that's great, we can into that soon. And of course, I didn't say well, it's a complete mess. It's not, it's just life. Things grow. But yeah, up and down.
What better intro to what our conversation is going to be about today? And our conversation, as per the other mini intro you guys already heard that we've recorded, is with one of my favorite people in the world. Hi, Aaron. Welcome to the pod and welcome to the conversation. And thank you for jumping straight into that call. What we did, as you can imagine, is we heard that Aaron was going to give us a good story straight in the middle of our pre-pod trials, and we hit record. So you're getting it straight from the fire. So we're all having this chat. So thank you for coming on.
Last appreciated. So a lot of the experience.
We didn't guarantee you any experience. What experience are you expecting? Like, I'm sorry. Like this is completely. There's gonna be a consumer office call he's making up for this. So? Yeah, there's no experience. Yeah. More stuff I didn't say in the intro, which was a very dry kind of going through of Aaron's amazing accomplishments in life, is that I haven't disclosed our personal connection, if you will, and I haven't actually told the story to Dave properly either because I wanted him to hear it live, and I'll try and be succinct, not very good at that, as we all know. Whoever is listening to this knows I can't, but I'll try.
This is going to be the reaction face.
This is your reaction face.
Yeah.
Both you and the duck will have a reaction face. Look, she's come very close to listen. She needs to come parked here to listen to. To whoever is listening to this on a podcast, you're missing the video of it on YouTube. Our traditional duck has come in to hear about you're blocking the duck, Dave. If you want to move a bit there, that's it. Now everyone's listening to it.
Superseded by a duck.
I met Aaron a few years ago when we tried something really big. We tried to what I would say. I'm trying to not look at his face as I say it. Pull technology heist by making a technology giant be smarter than they were willing to be. And I don't know that it was an successful experience, but it was for sure a very painful experience. It was my maybe first experience of being an entrepreneur for longer than 5 minutes. I don't think I had ever lasted more than 6 months before, but then Aaron made me stick it out because the being around Aaron's mind is what was driving 90% of this technology giant I shan't name. So I too, like everyone else in that technology giant, just needed to be around Aaron's magic. We stuck it out for a long time. We made an amazing thing. Nobody cared. And in fact, we all got swiftly punished for making that thing. And as you can see, Aaron and I were like, well, F this. We're not going to entrepreneur anything anymore. We got to entrepreneur this like we should have done. So Aaron went to fix the data layer of the problem, and I went to fix the team and people and project layer of the problem. And here we are
How many years on?
A few years later, we don't want to say how many because pandemic happened and it makes us sound slow, doesn't it,
I
Aaron?
know,
How many years?
imagine that didn't happen that whole patch of time. The memories of that time, they are still vivid. In fact, aside from like the huge technical challenge and trying to get a massive company to change everything and how they operate, I distinctly remember being stuck in an airport for an entire day trying to get to a customer. Memorable. Yeah.
Is that
Please
into the country?
consider everyone. No, but consider, but stop, not edit point, stop point. Everyone, let's think and feel what Aaron is saying. Like, aside from the minor challenge of having to turn a technology giant and all the back end banks that it was driving, like without much foresight. Aside from all that minor thing we were doing as a day job, we were stuck in an airport for an entire day. But we were. I mean, you would not believe the kind of
nice one?
bad luck I have brought upon Aaron in his day.
Oh dear.
You would not believe.
Well, I mean, a small segue into that. After waiting the entire day to board a flight, somehow between the moment Dwayne went through the control and I went through the control, they managed to cancel both our tickets. So Dwayne was stuck on one side, not able to go anywhere, and I was stuck on the other, not able to go anywhere.
How did you manage?
Absolutely not alive. It's hilarious.
We've been through quite those are like I think of those fondly, and I'm sure some of our colleagues at the time, shout out to Ravid, shout out to Ben, and people that have gone through horrible experiences with us to build both teams and software. They remember those times as well. And you know what? That's what we had. We had team. We had super psychological safety because and any entrepreneur team would have psychological safety because it's the inside Apple situation where it's you against a machine that you created by mistake. But Aaron had I've been in awe of his capability of entrepreneurship. Doesn't even cost him anything. It just comes to him. He is that kind, that settled, that elegant, on top of being that sharply on the cusp of technology. So that's what people thought, Aaron, at the time. I'm sure you're even better these days because you're vintage like all of us. But where does this journey, what happened meanwhile? Catch us up, all right? What happened over the last few years since we left the giant carry on into the darkness?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, the whole experience is so worth it. Because on the other side, when you're speaking to a big company and you're speaking to someone who's trying to change the family, like trying to help them change the company, and you fully appreciate the difficulties. So, you need a business base? Let's go right at that. You need to plan who needs to think about this needs to change or that needs to happen. Those 50 million people that you need to keep abreast of what's going on, let's go and do that. And, I don't get frustrated anyone this as much as I would if I hadn't been to an experience. And so, yeah, on the outside, you've got the world is your oyster problem. On the inside, you can pretty much you've decided what domain you're in because you're working on the domain that they're in. On the outside, one of the bigger challenges you have to focus more on who it is you're going to help first. You might be able to help everyone, but you just can't help everyone at once. So sort of fast forward the few years since, trying to build a company, build a product, build a sales pipeline, build a sensible go-to-market, and the 10 iterations of all of those that have happened along the way. That has been what's keeping me busy.
He said a lot in that. So we can unpack that for the rest of the day. But for the sake of our listeners, the magic of what Aaron said, I think what I heard was one, you've heard there, I hope there's some tidbit coming out of our edit that makes that point. You've heard there what it means to be an entrepreneur who used to be an entrepreneur and who is a technologist. I think all those things had to happen together for Aaron to tell you that story, meaning one, he understood the size of the problem. Two, he now is seeing why it was hurting on the inside, but it's also hurting everyone on the inside who's looking out. It's no better in or out, is what we're saying, really. And we've said this on this podcast multiple times. I know no one has time to kind of recap what you're saying, but what we always come back to is there's no one knows, right? No one has the exact golden printout of what we need to be doing. But like you guys are going to go in depth in, I hope, an episode of Let's Plug It, Developer Insights. You're having a conversation that goes in depth into this, I hope. It's understanding really the size of the problem, which I think brings us to the following things. One, not everyone has the same overall view of the technology industry that you have enjoyed over the years. Both of you are people who, and I suspect the 20 other people that are listening to this, bless your hearts, we're all people who have seen what's happening. What does it mean for stuff to be like very basic things? So that Darren knows we spent months, years trying to teach people about. We've had the one thing we don't say much because neither him nor I are braggers, which hasn't really helped us much in life, is we've trained probably tens of technologists and business people in what technology all is, so that we make this change in this big company. So it meant that we had to kind of really strip everything to concepts and go, this is what backend is, this is what front end is, this is what the data layer is, versus this is the context of the data, versus this is on premise, versus this is in the cloud. All of these very basic and very tenant level differentiations that are clear in our heads, that are never clear in big companies and are never clear with new people coming in and so on. So I think, would you say what percentage of our time was spent just kind of trying to level the playing field and saying what we mean by a sandbox is, what an API is, was spent
So
all
we
day.
definitely don't help ourselves in technology. I think we think the first and easiest way to solve the problem of explaining it is to create another term so that you're really specific about what it is you're talking about. But all you've done is create another thing you need to explain.
Yes, well,
So we invent things all the time. We invent new words, we invent new concepts, we rename old things, we create confusion all the time. So which means that in terms of percentage, it's basically all the time. Like that's all we are doing is explaining things. And the issue amongst us, if there are, after the few people I can compete on, it really simplify it down. And no lingo, no kind of technical words, no what I call just really simplify it down. And involve the data, you're putting it in one place so you can make a sensible insight. That's sort of the fundamental.
exceptional segue. I have got to interrupt you because this is the best segue. I can't believe he said that. You're putting all of it in one place so you can make sense of it. Let me show you an outtake which we have prepared for you, because we were discussing this episode earlier in the day, and we were trying to think, fine, for technologists, it's not a big conversation. They know what the hell the problem is. We have data that's fragmented, that's come into different ways. We see the notches on the tree of how which CTO made what decision, which part is on-prem, which part is... We don't need to have this conversation between us. You guys can have that conversation between you on Developer Insight. I am hoping that people and tech is a bigger platform than that, and that people that are listening to this are not necessarily DevOps enthusiasts like the rest of us, right? So for those of us that don't have a fetish for DevOps, we need to kind of try and bring this to the more palpable layer of a layman technologist, because I think what's working against the both of you and many other developers with insights is that no matter how much insight you have, the translation to that next layer of laymanship has to translate into something that's a day-to-day to them. And let me show you what we were saying in the morning. We will attempt this live. We don't know if we can. So let us see what happens. It can't be worse than usual. We've already, for our listeners and not our viewers, we are attempting to share a screen just for Aaron to listen to what we were saying in the morning, and that would be this. Here's a reframe that we are recording offshoot, same studio, regarding the problem of explaining the issues of data to a layman, be that the layman are CRO, new CEO, a CFO, or a see you later mommy. Anyone that we, meaning our family, that is also a stakeholder in this. How do you explain the issues of the data? Let me tell you how you explain them to the layman. You go, you know how when you try to start capturing something, maybe photos or videos of your vacations or conversations that you want to remember with your friends or dates, you know, when you start trying to record something in your phone, you know how you have three systems for all of these things? I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're called, but you always have three systems, maybe four. And sometimes you manage to reduce it to two, but it's never one or any of these things. Your photos are saved in two places, maybe iCloud and Google, but certainly in your phone. And you have a suspicion they're also on your desktop, but you're not quite sure what that last extension is. And I'm talking to technologists here, which is what's sad. You know how that personal layman technologist everyday person is having these hundreds of systems, at least four, I would wager, to a minimum of two. No, a max of four to a minimum of two. I don't know what the max is. Sometimes we have many of them. Well, just like that is how the vast majority of mid-sized enterprises in the technology sphere today have a mini spaghetti of their own. You may have heard of spaghetti and of bad backends when we were discussing banks some 12 gods 15 years ago when we started talking about this, and until 5 years ago when we stopped talking about it because, you know, blockchain, and also we're bored. But when we talked about that, we talked about the back end of banks and the spaghetti there, right? And oh my God, how stupid of them to have these four different systems that they covered with like 60 other unpluggable brands, and how silly of them and how much more advanced, whatever. Let's not even discuss that. They either got themselves out, and Aaron will laugh at this, towards the cloud, and I can't wait to hear his rebuttal to that, or somehow or other are not there today. Let's not discuss the giants. Let's not discuss the small, smart ones that start right, but let's discuss everyone else. And that's them every day having 3 to 4 systems, having no idea what the extension is of any of them, and just being tired to remember the neural pathway that brought some system engineer to convince them that half an in-house, half an out-house inbred solution extension dot personal CEO is the way to go with their data. And now they need to show anyone that they have this data, and they now sound almost crazy by having this business proposition that is an actual real rare delivery that we're having.
Oh my life!
And
The
that's
delivery across while we were running this.
that's what
Sorry,
happens when you record outside.
Yeah.
this
That's
could
it.
be
I mean,
cleaning
they heard the birds. It's not a
probably
stick.
won't.
Yeah.
So where were we? I actually remember. So that's exactly what happens when a CEO of a mid-sized, now come good, has been purchased 3 times and has been presumed a unicorn once company, faces themselves with a, but I know I have this data somewhere problem. I know I have it. Just like, you know, you have that vacation photo. And just like, you know, that kind of things should be magically sorted and filed, but not in the way that Apple or Google already did for you. So I think you should frame it that way, that there's a mid-sized, and then the question is, how big is this slice of the industry? So I'm looking forward to hearing answers in our episode. If this at all, no, we didn't.
Now, a period of us not knowing if we have
It does.
recorded this.
Here's a reframe that
I'm
really
really recording
recording
it and see if we can
offhand,
actually stop this.
offshoot.
We can't
Okay.
stop
Same
this. Now we
There we
can. We were never worried. Just stop sharing and continue this conversation. It makes
Yeah.
sense. Just how you don't remember your vacation photo is how the CEOs you talk to today can't get to that data. Is that fair to say?
Okay, it's back.
We're back.
Well, that is a good framing of the problem. And I think this is what people need. They need something we can relate to. Yeah, they can imagine their fucking internet 3D all the time. And then they can also imagine that he times that problem by hundreds of people. But of course it's spaghetti. I mean, of course it is. And you add some time, and you add some acquisitions, and you add all the things you talked about. And it's really not to blame that it's a mess. What I suppose is kind of surprising is that we're still surprised. You know, well, it's obviously going to be a mess if all of that happens. And there's a continual effort to keep refreshing and removing and simplifying, and that is the job.
Yeah, so that's data debt, really, I guess. Lots of disparate bits of data from disparate bits of APIs and applications and databases all over the place.
Yeah. No.
We did that. I
Data
can't
debt.
even. I mean,
Yeah.
human debt sounds absolutely logical to me. And, you know, in a sense, I think data debt, is it not like human debt and tech debt, only how it translated into your data, what it ended up being in your data? Like if you have an organization, hear me out here. On this podcast, we talk about this concept of human debt a lot. It's obviously, as you know, because it was born before we worked together. But I'll repeat it for our listeners. The definition of human debt is all those times that the organization should have done better by its employees, and it has failed them in the sense of the organizational changes that happened without much communication, the lack of good, solid communication, the lack of consideration for their private lives, the lack of mental health kind of skeleton put in place, all the politics, all of the bullying. We know what it is. That's human debt. Human debt then ends up, I think, multiplying tech debt. Tech debt becomes from something that you are managing in an SRE jointly happy way. It becomes compounded into something that's entrenched in the organization. People are afraid to talk about it, and it just, I don't know that there is, it's as solvable as that. Is it solvable? That's a question for the both of you. Can you clean data debt? Should you attempt to never get data debt? Or should you get some sprints that you clean it up once in a while?
Well, I wonder if you've considered that human debt and tech debt and data debt, are they almost look exactly the same? Because often the people organization represent the systems. And the data, like all the funny trends that the police has played to me recently, is that everyone's really keen to establish data owners. So there. And I wonder whether that has created a new situation where you've got a piece of legacy that you have to hang on to, that you carry around as baggage, and the longer you are in company, the more baggage you carry around. And
it's a Phoenix project, Brent, that everyone is putting their hand up for, so that they secure their seats. Though, would you say it's not that? I mean, do you not see this, that internally people are so desperate to have this ownership so that they're sure?
that was one of the sound failed. So say the question again.
So I mean, it's a threefold question, if you wish, but it sounds to me like the behavior that you're describing is practically everyone jumping in to put their hand up to become the proverbial Brent from Jane Kim's Phoenix project. But literally saying, I own this is mine, let me fix it in a really good, solid way, but it is my data that I know of, just this one bit, right? Which, I mean, obviously overly simplifying of what you're saying, but if you start carving out data ownership, do you not with it just create excuses so that you're more convinced that your particular people situation is more secure? Is that not a fear reaction, is what I'm asking, from the technical community?
So I think whether they are seeking it as much as they are giving it, because what people really worry about, getting data you might describe as lineage, or you might describe as just where did it come from. So they're really worrying about that they're looking at a piece of information, they're about to make a decision, they don't actually know where it came from. Aggregate of whether it's been sitting in a cupboard for a while and it's actually out of date. They try to establish an owner to solve that problem. But really, it's a technology debt problem, and they've just created a new human debt problem by giving it to someone who can't possibly leave or who can't possibly move on because they have to look after something.
I think you're giving it's a whole new definition of human debt to a degree. So you're saying you're creating an operational debt problem, is what I would call that. We actually call out operational debt in people not tech, in the sense that in the company where we write software, in the sense of anytime, and in our media company, anytime that we leave stuff, we try to keep ourselves very honest at the end of a sprint. And when we've left stuff unclean, we literally will write a ticket called operational debt, haven't
Yeah.
moved all of the logos, whatever
Yeah.
it is. And
Let
finally,
me
enough
give you
data, right?
let me give you an absolute classic. So, the company we discussed earlier, I received an email the other day from someone who found a piece of code that I wrote 15 years ago and wanted a little bit of help with it.
You've left your own sales hooks into various systems around the universe, Mr. Phethean. Is what's happening.
Who
Congratulations.
knows? Well, until I could do. I mean, I had to honestly say I had completely forgotten that piece.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, let's take a step back from that, because while it's a heartwarming story, it's also very sad for the industry. They still have some of your stuff in a corner laying about. Well, might as you to no. I think you two need to take a step even further back, and I'll be devil's advocate about this. There is almost, if you want to be, I want to be careful here, but if you want to take a step out and have a helicopter view of what we're looking at, the part of the humanity's life where we had a need for human programming is very short, and it's coming to an end. Like that's not, if we look at us as humans, maybe we're in a simulation sort of thing. That's kind of like 4-hour lifetime. I'm almost saying that. I think we're coming out of need to. I think we have now moved from creators of code and creators of content, which we all like to do, whether it was content or video or writing or code. We all like that, being in the zone bit. To we have now finished all the content we all need to make. And what we need to do as humans is manage those and administer those and repackage those. And we're really just in this adult project management new shoes that we don't want to be in. The very little of our needs in any capacity we are in, except for the very fortunate ones that are, I don't know, a Tibetan monk and they can write code all day. The rest of us have to communicate for the vast majority of the time, which is what takes most of the time, and it's the yuckiest bit. And then we have to actually do the adulting and the project management, right? So if you look at overall the idea of, do we need to be doing any of the software development? I needed to for a minute, but then we made this thing that's going to make it, and we're not needing to, right? And this sounds, it goes straight into, does AI kill us all sort of conversation. And in a sense, we're not going to see the end of it, will we, Aaron? Will we see the end of the AI argument?
Maybe I could be a little bit more hopeful about AIs. I think the communication effort, I personally find it very draining. Yeah, because it's repetitive. And you need to explain it in different ways, in different contexts, and there's reasons why you might not include all the information for someone. You need to include more information for others. So maybe the hope of AI is not that we're replaced and redundant, is that it just helps us explain in the right chunk size to the person that we need to explain it to.
I love that. From your lips to some investors' ears or something, because that would be very useful, that we would have this unified communication layer. But let us be honest, you and I have been talking about this for 10 years, and there's not been anyone in a hurry to be doing that for us. It's not going to happen.
It's not there yet.
And it's not. Did you make it? Did I make it? No, it's not going to happen this lifetime. Let us drop it. It's going to have to be human to human communication. We're going to have to.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think time. I mean, those are the best best solutions. Spending time with someone, that subtle, nuanced things have space to come out.
That's amazing, isn't it? That's the thing, I think. But we need to. I think that's the crux of it, the humanizing bit, right? How do we humanize with each other? If we want AI to help us with something, in my view, I don't disagree with you. I really hope that it gets to automate more of the shit and leave us with more of the good stuff. But the good stuff has to lay in thinking together, being kind and reading each other, because I mean those are the bits AI can't do, right? So let's focus on the bits it couldn't. So, but before then, we are all in this layer. We are talking about these things, and you guys are in the trenches writing that code, which is why I'd like people to go listen to you talk about it on Developer Insight. But which is interesting. Is it writing that code, or is it just explaining to those business cases why that code doesn't need to be written? You just need to let us at it. So have that conversation separately. But once we're done with that, as kind of this tension between people and technology, are we not still left, like Aaron said, with the same ones, the communication? Are you feeling it the same way? We're still going to be left with that.
All communication. It's all communication.
All the communication.
It's all communication. Everything we do is communication. I mean, if we talk about what we're talking about here with the data, it's not necessarily the data itself per se, but it's the integration between these different data layers. And how do we move petabytes of data around underneath the covers so that we get that better integration? And the trade-off is, do we move it? Do we not move it?
And that's where
do we not?
Aaron will tell you what the secret sauce is. Don't tell them what the secret sauce is. But obviously, this is not a sales pitch, and we all know that, right? But for you to kind of arrive where you have arrived, Aaron, I think it's fascinating to anyone who's a technologist and listening to this, that you have had the resilience and the foresight of staying with he's an optimist at heart. You hear it in this conversation. You can't make Aaron just go down this we're all gonna die path, which is amazing as a team leader. So one of the things that we do on this podcast, we discuss kind of what does it mean to have authentic leadership, and what does it mean to have psychological safety in teams and so on. And the thing that Aaron has always been able to create is the type of team that people adore. Now, I know that some elements, I'm not going to ask him how he did it, because I don't think he knows how he did it, but I'll tell you as an external observer that one, people adore the fact that he's, the technologist he is, but that's easy. I've seen multiple teams built around this hero, idea that someone is super smart. It's easy to fall in love with someone being super smart and to want to do work for them. But from that to actually listening to them deeply and wanting to kind of trust them, it has taken, I think, Aaron, a lot of work. And here's the question about the work, Aaron, that I have. Over your time in building teams, have you had to consciously spend time telling yourself, I need to speak to these amount of people, I need to spend one-on-ones with this amount of people, I need to make sure I put them together at least this amount of times, and I need to make sure that I care and know about them as a human? Did you have to tell yourself you have to do these things? You have to do in your head, or do these things come to you naturally?
I've certainly found that over time I appreciate more where I see the difference, where I see someone who's properly cared and really taking interest and sees that is their main function. Or maybe almost anyone could be a farmer, to use an analogy. Not everyone could be a gardener. That's kind of where it's like to me the learning is that in the kind of attitude to the time and the caring and the approach that I take. It's so easy to rush ahead, I suppose. Like for me, it's like nobody wants to eat all. Just come on, that's kind of not enough. So I definitely had to put a lot of effort into the learning what's required and observing what's required, and it's just really not a simple thing.
So you
have to be more appreciation over time.
So would you say that you learned leadership intentionally? That it's more of a thing you've observed and learned? You've trained your EQ intentionally. You've learned about how people function intentionally, or would you say that? I mean, I don't need your answer to tell you that you're talented in the topic. Well, and this is not for you to blow your own trumpet. This is for you to hopefully tell people, what did you do to become from a technologist a people leader? Because it's rare and it's needed. And it's not because you were super smart and people loved you. That's not rare. That's common. Everyone in a team thinks that the other dude somewhere is the smartest one. That's not a people leader. A people leader, I've seen Aaron spend time with people. It's someone who just genuinely from the heart, and he's lucky that he's someone who's good-hearted. And not all leaders are good-hearted. Would you say that there was some investment you did in your EQ
Yeah,
or the
so
book you read? What would you
I
recommend?
think if you could like magically just zoom someone to the point of appreciating the benefits, they would probably then go looking for ways to learn. I probably came about it the other way around, where I had some structured training of myself or how I approach things. Some other kind of life coaching type things where you're actually probably more appreciating how you come across to other people potentially, not just about what you want to achieve. Kids teach you an awful lot because you're communicating all the time and you're getting a response from them.
I was going to leave
Um,
this for the other one, but tell people that you're the dad of two amazing boys.
Always,
That's what you learn. Yes.
two amazing boys who, on a daily basis, challenge ideas, and you don't even have to look for feedback. I'll give it to you.
That's right. We used to say, because we have kids almost the same age, we used to say they're just growing new features, like independently.
Exactly. And
So I
more
interrupted you.
relationships
That's how you
work in
learn.
general. That teaches
Sorry,
you
I
a lot.
interrupted you, but you were saying this is how you learn. You've done so again. Let's for our listeners, super important. Like these are takeaways. Once you can understand the reason for it, let's magically zoom to you having the motivation to focus on your humanizing capability as a leader, as a person, as a programmer. Then like you're saying, then there are things you can do, right? There's life coaching you can do, like loads of it in many geographies will come through the company. For those of you that are still on the inside, those of you that are on the outside, we probably have some therapy of some sort. So lean into that, genuinely do, because it actually teaches us things. And these days, I keep saying this on this podcast. These days, we have no excuse. Like there's the equivalent of a PhD in 6 months of watching TikTok if you try hard enough. So it's just a question of curiosity and time and emotional investment into learning things. But there's nobody who can go, oh, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know how emotions work. I don't understand about diversity or autism, or what don't you understand about that's not already out there. So yeah, there's no excuses anymore in terms of information these days. But I
I
understand this
think
thing when it's
the other thing that can happen from certainly from my experience is that you can end up having a bit of an existential crisis of what if I could convince people to do what I want? Or maybe I shouldn't. That's kind of a crazy sort of appreciation on the side.
Yes.
You can convince someone, but should you? So, it's definitely worth the time. You'll have to make your own choice. Are a good person willing to call you or not?
I don't even know where to go with that, because yes, you should. If you can, you should. If you can and you know it's good, you should. I think when it comes to technology, he's right. If as technologists, we know in our heart of heart what the right way is, and if we had, we were the emperors in the universe, we would just lay out the perfect enterprise with the perfect gods, and it would never end up being as effed up as all the other people we see every day, obviously. But outside of knowing what's best, and then in that context, if I know what's best, should I really convince everyone to do this one thing or not? I get it. But when it comes to the part we were saying earlier, 100% that's what's best and that's what you should be doing, which is what Aaron is saying is from the gods. Try and do some of that self-exploration bit that's painful in some way that gives you a boost. And then even again, I say this to people all the time, you did this work and you did this work when this wasn't as accessible as it is today. For anyone to want to still be a technologist, we're going to have to double work on the people side of things. So obviously we have to double down on the bits that make us good leaders and good teammates and good humans, really. And with that, I think that's wrapping it up. I'll leave you two to talk about the technology in Developer Insights. For anyone who is not subscribing to both, don't forget there's also another podcast that maybe one day we can have people that are listening to this come speak on as well, which is not only Developer Insights but Neurospicy at Work. because many of us listening to this are autistic, and part of why we're so fascinated by what's the hold up with technology is that we see these concepts so clearly that it makes us go, oh, for God's sake, like, can we move faster? So come listen to Neurospicy at Work, listen to the two of them still talking about this on Developer Insights. And thank you so much for coming on, Aaron. It's always a pleasure to talk to people who have done it and have lived it and are still in the trenches.
Absolutely. Impact is all that you
Thank
really
you.
Okay, thanks very much, Aaron. Bye.